Inshallah, we'll be reciting from ayah number 229 of Surat Al-Baqra. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الطلاق مرتان فإمساك بمعروف أو تسريح بإحسان ولا يحل لكم أن تأخذوا مما آتيتموهن شيئا إلا أن يخافا ألا يقيما حدود الله فإن خفتم ألا يقيما حدود الله فلا جناح عليهما فيما افتدت به تلك حدود الله فلا تعتدوها ومن يتعد حدود الله فأولئك هم الظالمون فإن طلقها فلا تحل له من بعد حتى تنكح زوجا غيره فإن طلقها فلا جناح عليهما أن يتراجعا إن ظنا أن يقيما حدود الله وتلك حدود الله يبينها لقوم يعلمون صدق الله العظيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Last week we spoke about the fiqh of taking oath. We mentioned that there are a few conditions in order for an oath to be a valid oath. We mentioned the three different types of oath and which oath demands tawbah and which oath demands kafara, expiation. And there are some oaths which are ineffectual and they will not be considered in Sharia. And also we explained what was the kafara and what was the expiation, how much a person should give. And then after this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala went on to speak about family affairs and family matters. And if family affairs, they are good, then the society will be good as well. If there is corruption within the families, then there will be corruption and fasad within the society as well. The first hukum Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke about was that of ila. And ila is when a husband takes an oath that he will stay away from his wife for 4 months. He will stay away from having relation with his wife for 4 months. If he takes this oath and he does not have relation with his wife until 4 months passes, then he will be separated from his wife. And if he does go near his wife, then he will have to give kafara for breaking his oath. And then we mentioned the waiting period for a divorcee. If a man gives divorce and talaq to his wife, then the divorcee, the woman, must wait a waiting period for 3 menstruational cycles. And once these 3 menstruational cycles are done, then she may go ahead and marry another man. And we explained the reason for this waiting period is to protect the womb, is to make sure we know who the father of the potential child will be if there is any. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in ayah number 229 is going to speak about divorce and the number of divorce and laws pertaining to divorce. Before we mention, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says at-talaqu marratan, that divorce is 2 times. Before we mention these laws, we have to understand that in the time of Jahiliyyah, pre-Islam, before Islam came and before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came, the women, they were being abused and they were being oppressed. The women, they were being bought and sold like cattle, and they were being used like how a person uses the furniture in his home. They were absolutely oppressed and they were absolutely abused. The woman, They would be forced to go wherever their guardian sent them. They would have no financial right. The woman, they would be oppressed by the man and the husband. They would be given no rights of inheritance. They would be given nothing. And they would be treated very wrong, and they would be oppressed a lot. All the rights were taken away from them. They had no wealth. No one would care about them. And also they would not even get a share of the inheritance. It was when Islam and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came, in which the women, they were given their right. And the women, they were given their right of inheritance. And there are some barbaric people that say that Islam oppresses the woman, whereas we know in the Quran there is a chapter called Surat Al-Nisa, the chapter regarding women, and there is no chapter in the Quran regarding Al-Rijal, Surat Al-Rijal, there is no such thing. And within the beginning of the Surah An-Nisa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the right of inheritance to the woman. That if a girl is a daughter or a sister or a mother, her share is already fixed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So immediately when Islam came, we see that the share of inheritance has already been given to the woman. Along with that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Sharia made it an obligation upon the husband to provide for his wife. The Sharia made it an obligation upon the husband to lodge and give shelter to one's wife. Before this, there was no such thing. There was no such thing as nafaqah. There was no such thing as mahar. There was no such thing as, lodging the woman within your house. The woman, they would be abused. So Islam came and put obligations upon the man to give to his wife and to give the hukuk which are due by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to one's wife and to the woman as well. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a living example of this. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the best amongst you are those who are best to their wives, and I am the best to my wife. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam showed us how a man should treat a woman, and also showed us and told us about the hukuk of women. So it is impossible for one to point fingers at Islam and at Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam for saying that the Muslims, they abuse their women, whereas before Islam, this is when the women, they were being abused and they were being sold and they were not given any right and no inheritance rights. But when Islam and the Sharia came, they had been given many rights, including financial rights, physical rights, inheritance rights, and all sorts of hukuk Islam and the Sharia gave to the women. Now, having this said, one of the common practices in the time of pre-Islam, in the time of Jahiliyyah, was that a man would give divorce to his woman thousands of times. And we mentioned the rule last week that when a man gives divorce to his wife, then she has to wait a total of 3 menstruational cycles. And once those 3 cycles are done, now she is free to marry whomsoever she wills. And we mentioned there were 2 types of divorce. One was when a man uses clear words of talaq. He says, talaqtuki, or I give you divorce. In this type of talaq, this is known as talaq raj'i. And a man is able to take his wife back within the waiting period. All he has to do is say, I take you back, and the man will go back to his previous marriage. The second type of divorce was when a man uses unclear words. For example, he says, I disown you, I don't want to be with you anymore, and he intended talaq. This is known as talaq ba'in. And in this type of talaq, a man can take his wife back within the waiting period, but through a new contract of nikah, a new ijab, a new qabul, a new proposal, a new acceptance, and within the appearing of 2 witnesses. There must be 2 people who witness this. So these were the 2 types of talaq that are being mentioned. Along with that, we mentioned that a man can take his wife back. However, he can only do this up to 2 times. But in the previous times, a man would give divorce to his wife, and when her 3 menstruational cycles were about to come to an end, he would take her back. And then he would divorce her again. And when the 3 months were coming to an end, he would take her back. And then divorce her, take her back, divorce, take her back. Thousands of times. Why? In order to cause harm to the woman. So they would say that we do not want to stay with you, nor do we want you to go to someone else. So they would divorce them when their 3 cycles would come to an end, because once that comes to an end, they are allowed to marry whomsoever they will and they are free. So once those 3 cycles would come to an end, a little bit before, they would take her back. And then they would give divorce again. And then when those 3 months would come to an again, they would take her back and they would continue this hundreds and thousands of times. So there was one woman whom her husband told her that I do not want to live with you, nor do I want you to be permissible for anyone else. So she said, how will you do this? He said, I am going to divorce you. When your 3 months are about to come to an end, I'm going to take you back and I'm going to continue doing this. So then she complained to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and she said that my husband saying this, and then this ayah was revealed where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, At-talaqu marratan, that divorce is only 2 times. In other words, you can only divorce your wife 2 times, and only then you will have the chance to take her back. If you give more than 2 and you give 3 or more, now there will be different circumstances. It will be a different situation. But for you to have the power and the option to take your wife back, it is only up to 2. Not hundreds and thousands times like how the people they used to do before. So if you divorce your wife and now you want to take her back, you only have 2 more left. If you divorce her again and you take her back, now you have 1 more left. And then after that you will have no chance of taking her back until a very peculiar situation takes place, which will be mentioned in the following ayah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, At-talaqu marratan, divorce is up to 2 times. In other words, in order to give divorce and take back, the option of taking back is up to 2 times. فَإِمْسَاكٌ بِمَعْرُوفٍ أَوْ تَسْرِيحٌ بِإِحْسَانٍ, that when you divorce your woman and she's in her waiting period, either take her back with goodness and justice, that take her back and give her her hukuk and live with her like how a normal couple is supposed to live, أَوْ تَسْرِيحٌ بِإِحْسَانٍ, or let her go. Let her go with justice. Don't try to put dhulm upon her. Don't take her back with the intention of divorcing her again so that her waiting period can be extended. Don't do that. Either take her back with fairness and with justice, or let her go. Let her, witness her 3 months and then let her do whatever she wants. You will be completely separated. Do not do dhulm and oppression upon the woman. Now, having this said, we have to mention that talaq is a further 2 types. Number 1 is talaq ahsan, and this is the best form of talaq. And again, talaq is the last resort when it comes to a husband and wife. This should be the last thing. However, if the circumstances is such that now it is impossible to resolve the matters, meaning you sat with scholars, you sat with the family, but it just so happens that you cannot get along, now there will be no problem with resorting to divorce. However, before that, all things must be taken in order to bring the marriage back together. But if it just so happens you cannot live together, your ideology is not together, your mindset is different, you are going to argue and fight all the time, Islam does not force you to be in that marriage. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you're going to oppress one another. If you don't like her, she doesn't like you, you will not give each other's hukuk. And then you will be sinful for this. So Islam is not like other religions where when you get married, you are bound and you are tied to that marriage for the rest of your life. However, Islam is such that when you enter into the contract of marriage, it should be for the whole life. This is what Islam wants. But if certain circumstances come about where now you cannot live together anymore, Islam will not oppress you and force you to be in that marriage. Now you have the last option, which is divorce. And now we mentioned divorces of 2 types again. Number 1 is something known as talaq ahsan. And this is the best form of talaq. Meaning, if one is forced to divorce his wife, he should do this type of divorce. And what is this type of divorce? He should give 1 talaq in such purity in which he did not have relation with her. And after this, he should let her wait 3 menstruational cycles, and then he will be completely separate from her. There is no need to give 2, there is no need to give 3. Again, you have to give the divorce in her purity. If a man gives divorce while she is in her menses, this will be sinful, but the talaq will still fall. So the best form of talaq, if one has to do so, is to give divorce in her purity, just 1 divorce, in such a purity in which relation did not take place, and let her go through her 3 months of menses, and then she'll be separate from you. The second type is that talaq which is sinful. And a person will be sinful for this, and a husband will be accountable for this. However, the talaq will still happen. What is this? This is when a man gives divorce to his wife while she's in her menses. or a man gives 2 divorces at once, or a man gives 3 divorces at once. This type of divorce will cause a man to be sinful. However, the divorce will still fall. So again, we have to learn. Some people, they think that we have to give 3 in order for the divorce to fall. And we are going to speak about 3 in the coming ayah and the harms of it, and the warning that Rasulullah and Allah Ta'ala gave regarding giving 3 divorce. So again, if the matter is such that you have to resort to divorce, give 1 divorce. Just say, I divorce you in such a purity in which relation did not take place. And then after that, she will go through 3 menstruational cycles, and then you will be completely separate. Nothing else needs to be done. So Allah Ta'ala says that while she's in her waiting period, if you want to take her back, take her back. But you have to give her huquq. Not because you want to take her back and then give her divorce so her waiting period be extended. Or let her go with fairness. Let her go with ma'ruf. Let her go your way, you go your way. If you cannot live together, no problem. Let her go her way, you go your way. Do not make things ugly, and do not put oppression and dhulm upon one another. Then Allah Ta'ala says, وَلَا يَحِلُّ لَكُمْ أَن تَأْخُذُوا مِمَّا آتَيْتُمُوهُنَّ شَيْئًا إِلَّا أَن يَخَافَ أَلَّا يُقِيمَ حُدُودَ اللَّهِ. It is not permissible for the husband to take wealth from the wife unless they fear that they will not uphold the rights of one another. Now what does this mean? Sometimes the husband, he is an abuser and he is oppressing the wife, and he says, if you want me to divorce you, then pay me. Otherwise, I'm not going to divorce you. In this type of situation, it will not be permissible for the man to take any wealth. It will be sinful and haram for him. However, فَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ أَلَّا يُقِيمَ حُدُودَ اللَّهِ فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْهِمَا فِيمَا افْتَدَتْ بِهِ. If the wife, she thinks that she cannot give the right to her husband, and the husband thinks to himself he will not fulfill the rights of his wife, then in this case there is no problem if the wife ransoms herself, and this is something known as Khula. And now we mentioned there's 2 types of situation when it comes to Khula. One is where the husband is oppressing her and he is demanding money. In this case, it will not be permissible for him to take the money. In this case, if the woman is being oppressed and her rights are taken away from her financially, physically, he is doing a lot of wrong things to her, and he says, give me money and then I will free you. In this case, the wife is not obliged to give money. Rather, she can go to the Sharia board, the scholars, and the scholars have the ability to annul the marriage and to cancel the marriage. This is only when the husband is abusing the wife. However, if it just so happens to be that the wife feels like she cannot fulfill the rights of her husband, the husband is a good man, he is not oppressing her, the husband has good akhlaq, he is good, religious, pious man, but she just feels that she will not be able to give him the right like how he deserves, now she can pay, and this is something known as Khula. And the first Khula to happen in Islam was done by the wife of Thabit ibn Qais. The wife of Thabit ibn Qais, she came to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam and she said that, by Allah, wallahi, I have no objection, I am not blaming my husband with regards to his deen and his akhlaq. He is a great man. He treats me very well. He is a very pious man. I have no complaints with regards to his akhlaq and with regards to his religion. However, our minds just don't get along. We are always arguing. It just so happens to be that we are always arguing. My ideology is not the same. My opinion is not the same. And I fear that I will not give him his right. So what should I do? So then Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam asked her, do you want to return his garden? In other words, Thabit ibn Qais as mahar gave a garden to her. So Rasulullah said, do khul'a. In other words, give him back his mahar, his garden, and then you will be separated. Do you want to do this? She said yes. So she returned back the garden, and then Rasulullah caused them to be separated. This is known as khul'a, where a wife, she pays back the mahar which was given by the husband, or any amount which they agree upon, and then they will be separated. However, if the husband is demanding money and abusing her and saying, if you don't do this, if you don't give me money, I'm not going to divorce you. In this case, the wife can go to the Sharia board, to the scholars, and they will have the right to annul the marriage based on the proof that the wife provides. This is known as khula. Then Allah Ta'ala says, وَمَنْ يَتَعَدَّ حُدُودَ اللَّهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ. Whoever transgresses the limits set by Allah Ta'ala, then they are the zalimun. Whoever transgresses the right of the husband, whoever transgresses the right of the wife, whoever gives more talaq than they're supposed to, whoever is demanding money from the wife, and whoever is transgressing all these laws set by Allah Ta'ala with regards to husband and wife, then they are from amongst the transgressors and they will be sinful. Now the next ayah will speak about 3 divorce. So we mentioned already that if a man and a wife, they have to resort to divorce, a man should only give 1 talaq and let her see out her 3 menstruational cycles, and then she will be separate from him. Now what is the ruling with regards to 3 talaq? This is very, very important and very common now. We find a lot of difference of opinion, but it is very important to note that if a man gives 3 divorce to his wife, what is the outcome of this and what happens? So we mentioned Al-Talaqu marratan, divorce is 2 times. When you give 1 divorce or 2 divorce, you still have the option of taking your wife back. Depending if it is a clear talaq, you just say, I take you back. But if it was the other type, then all you have to do is a new contract and she will be your wife again. However, what happens if the 3rd talaq is given? Allah Ta'ala says, فَإِن طَلَّقَهَا فَلَا تَحِلُّ لَهُ مِن بَعْدُ حَتَّى تَنْكِحَ زَوْجًا غَيْرَهُ. If a man gives the 3rd divorce, now before we even mention what happens, we see Allah Ta'ala use the word in, if. In other words, Allah Ta'ala is trying to say, stay away from 3, don't give it. Talaq is 2 types, 2 times, don't give the 3rd one. But if you did, now what happens? Allah Ta'ala says, if a man gives a 3rd talaq to his wife, she will not be permissible for him until she marries another man. And this is something known as halala. In halala, this is talaq is known as talaq mughallada. This is the strongest type of talaq, is when a man gives 3 divorce to his wife. And now he wants to take her back. He says, I regret my decision. I gave her 3, I want to take her back. How can he take her back? There has to be a process known as halala. And what is this process? This process is the wife has to marry another man. And then she has to have relation with him. And then that second husband has to divorce her, or he has to die, and then he can take her back. This is the scenario that Allah Ta'ala describes, and how severe it is to give 3, because look at the circumstance in order to take her back. No man wants to see his wife go to another man. That's why this harsh warning is given for a man to stay away from giving 3. We cannot give 3. If we do so, this is the harm. If you regret your decision, now the only way you can take her back is she has to marry another man. And it has to be a sincere marriage, not only for the sake of her coming back to you. And then he has to have relation as well, as we see from the hadith. And then if by chance he divorces her or he dies, then he can go back to the first husband. Sadly, nowadays we see something known as halala service. And we find this halala service. What is this? This is where there are services made where a man gave 3 talaq to his wife, and now this institution or this service is such that we have men that are going to marry the woman, they're going to have relation, they're going to divorce, and then you can go back. Halala service. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, لَعَنَ اللَّهُ الْمُحَلِّلْ وَالْمُحَلَّلَ لَهُ. May the la'na and the curse of Allah Ta'ala be upon the one who does this halala service. In other words, it is a service, and we find it. People, they are holding an institution that say, have you been given 3 divorce? You know how we see the lawyers, have you been given divorce? Come to our attorney or come to our office. They say, if you have been given 3 divorce and you want to go back to your husband, come to our office. We will marry you off to someone. You will have relation. Then we will give you a divorce and you can go back. This is absolutely haram. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, may the la'na and the curse be upon such a person. So we see now the harm of giving 3 divorce. And this is very am and widespread. A person thinks that in order for the divorce to take place, it has to be 3. Otherwise, it is not sufficient. We mentioned 1 is enough. Give 1, let them wait their 3 months, and you are completely separate. You don't have to do anything else. But when you give 3, now all these conditions come. Why has these conditions come? Because Allah Ta'ala blessed you with the option of taking your wife back after you give 1 or 2 divorce. If out of anger you gave divorce to your wife, and you have children, and afterwards you realize that you need her, now you can take her back. But this is only up to 2. But if you gave 3, you took away that option that Allah Ta'ala gave you. The option was, if you give 1 or 2, you can take her back without going through this halala, scenario. But if you gave 3, now you remove the option that the Sharia gave you. Sharia allowed you to take your wife back if it is up to 1 or 2. But now if you give 3, now you do not have the option anymore. You did it upon yourself because you gave 3. That's why Allah Ta'ala says, whoever gives 3, she will not be permissible for him until she marries another man. And now, if that other man gives her divorce or he dies, now the first husband can take back this woman. And now, I want to end off by mentioning a thing which is very important, is we see some Salafis and some so-called scholars saying that 3 is 1. That if a man gives 3 divorces, it is counted as 1. This is a big fitna, and this is a big bid'ah that is upon the ummah now. That's why if some people, there's something called fatwa shopping. They give 3 divorce, they come to the proper scholars, they say it is 3, you have to go through halala. And they keep going around finding the person who says 3 is 1. And then they take that fatwa and then they go on and they live with their wife. However, this type of marriage, if it goes back, is zina for the entire life. And there are many proofs to show that 3 is 3. From amongst the proof is in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one man, it was told to Rasulullah that a man gave 3 divorces to his wife. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam stood up and he was very angry and he said, أَيَلَعَبُ بِكِتَابِ اللَّهِ وَأَنَا بَيْنَ أَظْهُرِكُمْ? Is he playing with the book of Allah while I am here? In other words, why did he give 3? He should have just gave 1. But we see from this hadith that Rasulullah accepted 3 to be 3. Another hadith, a man gave divorce to his wife 3 times. And then the wife married someone else and then that man divorced her. So then she came back to Rasulullah and said, am I halal for my first husband? I married someone else and then he divorced me. Can I go back? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, لا حتى تذوق عسيلته وتذوقي عسيلته. That no, until you have relation with him. So we see a condition is when you marry someone else, in order for this halala, you must have relation. So this hadith also proves that Rasulullah recognized 3 to be 3. Otherwise, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, yes, no problem, go back. However, 3 is 3, and in order to go back, you must go through this scenario known as halala. Also a hadith, Umar radiallahu anhu, after Rasulullah passed away and Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu passed away, he stood up amongst the Sahaba and he said that now, since the honesty of the people has diminished, because sometimes back then the people would say, I said 3 out of emphasis. I didn't actually mean 3, I meant 1. So at the time of Umar radiallahu anhu, he saw that the people's honesty diminished and lying was very and widespread. So he said, now whoever says 3, it will be taken as 3. And when Umar radiallahu anhu said this, he was in front of all the Sahaba. And there were many Sahabas who were present who had expertise in fiqh. And they were alive at the time of Rasulullah. And not a single person rejected or denied what Umar radiallahu anhu said. He said, if anyone gives 3, their intention of saying 1 will not be taken. Because again, sometimes people said, I gave 3 out of emphasis. I meant to give 1, but the second and third was just to emphasize the matter. However, Umar radiallahu anhu stood up and said, this is not the case anymore. And every single person, every single Sahaba, senior Sahaba, expert Sahabas, not a single person lifted a finger and rejected or said anything. And this is why Ibn Abdul Barr rahimahullah, he mentioned that the jamahir of ulama, the consensus of the ummah is 3. And if anyone says otherwise, we will not even take that into consideration. This is what Ibn Abdul Barr rahimahullah mentioned. Imam Nawawi rahimahullah, one great scholar, he mentioned in his book that اتفق قال إمام شافعي وإمام أحمد وإمام أبو حنيفة وإمام أحمد بن حنبل وجماهير العلماء من السلف والخلف على أن الثلاثة هي ثلاثة. Imam Nawawi rahimahullah mentioned that Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, Imam Ahmad, Imam Shafi'i, Majority of the scholars of the past and the present scholars, all of them say 3 is 3. So now this fitna, which just appeared a few years ago, 100 years ago, this movement of the Salafiyah who say 3 is 1, this is complete bid'ah. That Imam Nawawi rahimahullah mentioned all the 4 school of thoughts, as well as the scholars of the past and present, they all say that 3 is 3 as well. And one last hadith to mention to prove that 3 is 3 and not 3 being 1 is the story of Hassan radiallahu anhu, and I will end with this as well. Hassan radiallahu anhu, when his father passed away, who was his father? Ali radiallahu anhu. When he was made a shaheed and he was martyred, now the people, they began giving bay'ah to him as the Khalifa. So Ali radiallahu anhu was the Khalifa of the Muslims. When he passed away, the Muslims began pledging their allegiance and giving bay'ah to his son, Hassan radiallahu anhu. So now as the people were giving their bay'ah to him, and he was now accepted as the Caliphate and the Khalifa, his wife, by the name of Aisha ibn Khath'ama, she said, congratulations, O Hassan, for being the Khalifa of the Muslims. She said, congratulations, you are the Khalifa now. So Hassan radiallahu anhu, he became very angry and he said, you are congratulating me while my father just passed away? How can you say this to me? Go away because I give you 3 divorce. I gave you 3 talaq. So again, what was the situation? He was being given the bay'ah as a Khalifa. And now his wife by the name of Aisha ibn Khath'ama or Khath'amiyah said congratulations, and he became angry because he was going through processing the fact that his father was just martyred in the most brutal way. And now here his wife is saying congratulations. So out of anger he said, go because I give you 3 divorce. Now what happened is afterwards it is known that now 3 is 3. And we see from this hadith how it was proven that 3 is 3. There is something known as mut'ah. Mut'ah is where a husband gives a present to his wife because he divorced her. And this is, sometimes it's wajib, sometimes it's mustahab. Because now you gave divorce to your wife and now she is going to be sad and all alone. So the Islam says, mustahab, give her a present. So Hassan radiallahu anhu gave her 10,000 dirhams as present because of the divorce. And you know when she said this, you know what she said? She said, مَتَاعٌ قَلِيلٌ مِنْ حَبِيبٍ مُفَارِقٍ. That this is a very small amount in comparison to my beloved that I just lost. That yes, he gave me 10,000, but this is nothing compared to what I lost. I lost my husband, my beloved husband, Hassan radiallahu anhu. So when Hassan radiallahu anhu heard that she said this, he began to cry. And he said, was it not that I heard Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam saying that if a man gives 3 divorce to his wife, and then she will not be permissible for him until she marries another man, I would have taken her back. Had it not been that I heard my grandfather, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, saying that when a man gives 3 divorce to his wife, the only way he can take her back is after she marries another man, I would have taken her back instantly and right away. So we see from this as well that 3 is 3 and 3 is not 1. So we come to know it is very important we stay away from 3. We see the harms of 3. A man will be sinful for giving 3. However, it will fall. And if you ever want to get back to your wife, maybe you are angry and now you feel that you need to get back with her, you cannot do so until she marries another man. So we took a bit of extra time because this was a very heavy topic. So may Allah Ta'ala give us all the understanding and the ability to understand what has been said. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.